On a Thursday morning in Washington, D.C., a rookie police officer spotted a black man in a suit walking toward a federal building. He didn't ask questions. He didn't check his radio. He didn't look at the credentials hanging visibly around the man's neck. He just acted. Hey, stop right there. You don't have authorization to access this entrance." The man stopped, turned calmly, looked the officer directly in the eye. "Officer, I have every authorization. I am the authorization. This is my building." The rookie didn't back down. "Sir, I need you to step back. Right now, you're blocking a federal facility." "I'm not blocking it. I run it." The officer's hand moved to his belt. "I don't know what you think you're doing, but I'm giving you one more chance to step away from that door." The man's voice stayed completely calm, not a tremor, not a flinch. "Son, I strongly suggest you get on your radio before you do something you cannot undo." The rookie didn't reach for his radio. He reached for his handcuffs. "Turn around, hands behind your back." Click, click. It was over in 11 seconds. 3 cameras captured every frame of what happened on those steps at 8:14 a.m. What that footage revealed would be viewed 14 million times before the weekend was over. What Officer Craig Tillman never bothered to find out was that the man he'd just handcuffed in front of 17 federal employees had run this entire division for 11 years, had put 41 corrupt officers behind bars, had testified before the United States Senate twice. The man in those handcuffs was the director of the FBI's Washington field office, and that one decision by a 22-month rookie was about to cost the city $9 million. Before we continue, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, please hit that subscribe button. Stories like these need to be shared, and your support helps us bring more truth to light. Craig Tillman had been on the force for exactly 22 months when he walked up those steps. 22 months. He'd graduated from the D.C. Metro Police Academy in February of the previous year, ranked 34th out of 41 in his class. His training supervisor's exit evaluation contained one specific note that would later become exhibit material in federal court. It read, "Officer Tillman demonstrates a pattern of escalating encounters that could have been de-escalated. Recommend additional bias awareness training before solo assignment." That recommendation was never acted on. In those 22 months, Tillman had accumulated 7 formal complaints, not suspicions, not allegations. Formal, documented complaints. 4 of them involved black male civilians. 3 of those 4 involved black men in professional attire, men who, by Tillman's own admission and deposition, he believed were acting suspiciously near federal or commercial buildings. The pattern was already there, in writing, in the file that his supervising sergeant, Lieutenant Dale Harmon, reviewed and signed off on just 6 weeks before this incident. On the morning of Thursday, March 9th, Tillman was assigned to a rotating exterior security detail at the J. Edgar Hoover building on Pennsylvania Avenue. He had been on post for 38 minutes when he spotted a black man in a dark overcoat approaching the restricted side entrance, the same entrance used exclusively by senior staff and directorate personnel every single day. Tillman did not check the entry log. He did not radio dispatch. He did not ask for a supervisor. He saw what he decided to see, and he acted on it. That was Tillman's first massive mistake. It would not be his last. The man in those handcuffs was Marcus L. Webb. Let that name sit for a moment. Marcus Lamont Webb, 54 years old, Howard University, class of 1993. Graduated summa cum laude with a degree in criminal justice. Went straight to Quantico, completed FBI training in the top 4% of his cohort, was offered a field placement in 3 cities simultaneously. He chose Washington. In the 31 years that followed, Webb built one of the most decorated careers in the modern history of federal law enforcement. He rose from field agent to senior supervisory agent in under 9 years, a timeline that, at the time, only 4 other agents in the Washington Division had ever matched. He led the takedown of a multi-state narcotics distribution network that had operated undetected for 11 years. He oversaw the prosecution of 41 law enforcement officers across 6 jurisdictions, officers convicted of corruption, civil rights violations, and abuse of power. Read that again. 41 officers convicted because of Marcus Webb. He had received the FBI Director's Award for Excellence 3 times. He had testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee on 2 separate occasions. He sat on the National Board of the Law Enforcement Accountability Project. He had been profiled in the Washington Post, The Atlantic, and 3 separate law enforcement journals. In 2019, he was appointed director of the Washington Field Office, one of the most powerful law enforcement positions in the United States Capitol. His office was 17 steps from where Craig Tillman snapped those handcuffs onto his wrists. 17 steps. This was not a man who needed to prove who he was. Craig Tillman never gave him the chance to try. It was 8:14 a.m. on Thursday, March 9th. Overcast, 34 degrees. Marcus Webb had parked his government-issued vehicle in its designated spot, the same spot with his name on a placard, and was walking toward the restricted side entrance he had used every single workday for 6 years. He was wearing a charcoal overcoat, a navy suit, and his FBI credentials on a lanyard around his neck. The lanyard around his neck visible. Tillman stepped directly into his path. "Sir, this entrance is restricted. You need to use the public entrance on the north side." Webb stopped, calmly. He looked at Tillman, a man he did not recognize from the regular detail, and responded in a measured, professional tone. "Officer, I'm Director Webb. I use this entrance every morning. My credentials are right here." This was Tillman's first opportunity to simply look down. The FBI seal was literally hanging on the man's chest. He didn't look. "Sir, I don't have you on my access list. I need you to step back from the door." That was Tillman's first massive mistake, dismissing visible federal credentials without verification. Webb took 1 step back, remained completely calm. "Check your radio. Call your supervisor. I'll wait." Tillman did not radio anyone. Instead, he placed his left hand on Webb's shoulder and physically redirected him away from the door. Webb did not resist. He repeated, clearly and calmly, "Officer, I am the director of this field office. I would strongly advise you to make a call right now." "Sir, stop resisting." "I am not resisting anything." That was Tillman's second massive mistake, falsely characterizing a completely compliant man as resistant on a body camera recording everything in high definition. And then came the third, the one that sealed everything. Tillman reached for his cuffs. In the 11 seconds it took to handcuff Marcus Webb, 4 federal employees had stepped out of the side entrance to see what was happening. 2 of them immediately recognized the director. One of them, Senior Agent Dion Carter, pulled out her phone. She was already recording when the cuffs clicked shut. Webb stood straight, shoulders back. He did not raise his voice once. By the time the second handcuff clicked into place, the recording had already begun. Senior Agent Dion Carter's phone captured the final 43 seconds of the handcuffing from 6 feet away. Clear audio, steady frame, full visual of both Webb's credentials still hanging visibly around his neck and Tillman's body camera recording simultaneously on his chest. 2 cameras, running at the same time, recording the same thing. Carter was not alone. Within 90 seconds of the cuffs going on, 5 additional federal employees had gathered at the side entrance. 3 of them had their phones out. Deputy Director Sandra Okafor, Webb's second-in-command, was among them. She identified herself to Tillman immediately and told him directly, in documented audio, that the man in handcuffs was the field office director. Tillman's response, captured clearly on his own body camera: "Ma'am, I need you to step back. This is an active detainment." That audio clip alone would later be played in federal court. The building's exterior security system added 2 more angles. Camera 7, mounted above the restricted entrance, captured the entire confrontation from above, including the precise moment Tillman's eyes passed directly over Webb's visible FBI credentials without pausing. That frame, that single frame of Tillman's gaze moving past the lanyard without stopping, that became the centerpiece of the civil complaint. In total, investigators would later confirm that the incident was captured from 5 independent recording sources: Tillman's Bodycam, Carter's phone, 3 additional civilian devices, 2 fixed security cameras, 7 recordings, all corroborating the same sequence of events. There was no version of this story that could be buried, no report that could be written to make it disappear. The truth was already in 7 places at once. Before we get to what happened next, and what happened next is significant, I want to pause right here. Because at this point in the story, Craig Tillman had been given no fewer than 4 separate opportunities to stop. Webb identified himself. Webb showed visible credentials. Webb asked him to radio a supervisor. Deputy Director Okafor personally identified him by name and title. Out loud, on camera. 4 chances. He ignored every single one. So I want to ask you something. Type director in the comments right now if you believe that Craig Tillman knew exactly who Marcus Webb was and chose to proceed anyway. And if you think this was purely a training failure, a genuine mistake by an undertrained rookie who simply didn't know better. Type rookie and tell us why. Because that distinction matters enormously for what comes next. It matters for how the department responded. It matters for what the federal investigators concluded. And it matters for the $9 million question that was sitting at the end of all of this. Have you or someone you know ever been dismissed, stopped, or questioned in a place where you had every right to be? The comments are a safe space. Tell your story. Senior Agent Dion Carter did not post the video immediately. She spent 47 minutes after the incident filing an internal incident report, notifying the Office of Professional Responsibility, and attempting to escalate through proper departmental channels. She did everything right. She followed every protocol. And then, when she received confirmation that Tillman had been placed on paid administrative leave, not suspended, not removed from duty, but paid administrative leave, she made a different decision. At 11:32 a.m. on Thursday, March 9th, Carter uploaded 43 seconds of footage to her personal Twitter account with a single line of text. This is what happened to my director this morning. Outside his own building. His credentials were visible the entire time. By 1 p.m., the post had 340,000 views. By 4 p.m., it had crossed 2.1 million. By midnight, 7.4 million people had watched Craig Tillman handcuff the director of the FBI's Washington field office on the front steps of his own building. The story broke on CNN at 2:47 p.m. MSNBC followed 11 minutes later. The Washington Post published a full digital feature by 5 p.m., citing 4 named federal employees as sources. By Friday morning, the story had been picked up by ABC News, NBC News, the Associated Press, Reuters, BBC News, and Le Monde in France. It had gone international overnight. By Saturday, the combined view count across all platforms, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, had surpassed 31 million. The hashtag #DirectorWebb was the #1 trending topic in the United States for 19 consecutive hours. But here's what separated this story from others like it. It wasn't just the public that was watching. 3 sitting U.S. senators posted statements by Friday afternoon. The chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, the same committee Marcus Webb had testified before twice, issued a formal request for a departmental review within 36 hours of the video's release. The Department of Justice opened a preliminary inquiry by Friday evening, not weeks later, not after months of pressure. Friday evening. Because when 7 independent recordings all tell the same story and 31 million people have already seen it, the machinery of accountability moves at a speed it rarely chooses to move at otherwise. The clock was now running on Craig Tillman and on everyone above him who had signed off on his file. The consequences did not trickle in. They arrived like a cascade, each one heavier than the last. 72 hours after the incident, Craig Tillman was formally suspended without pay, pending a full departmental investigation. His access credentials were revoked the same afternoon. He was 22 months into his career. 11 days later, the D.C. Metro Police Department's Office of Professional Responsibility completed its preliminary review. The findings were unambiguous. Tillman had violated 4 separate departmental protocols, including failure to verify credentials, improper use of physical restraint, and filing a misleading incident report, a report in which he described Webb as uncooperative and resistant. The body camera footage directly contradicted every characterization in that report. That report became a 5th violation, falsification of official documentation. 6 weeks after the incident, Tillman was formally terminated. His pension, at 22 months, had not vested. He left with nothing. 3 months later, Lieutenant Dale Harmon, the supervising sergeant who had signed off on Tillman's file, despite the standing recommendation for bias training, was demoted 2 ranks and transferred. His own record was flagged for supervisory negligence. 5 months later, the Department of Justice concluded its civil rights inquiry. Federal civil rights charges were filed against Tillman personally. 7 months after those steps, the city of Washington reached a civil settlement with director Marcus Webb. The figure was confirmed publicly: $9 million. Not a penny was contested by the city. Secondary consequences followed quietly. Tillman's law enforcement certification was permanently revoked in the District of Columbia and flagged in 14 additional states. He relocated out of Washington within 2 months of termination. His career in law enforcement was over before it had truly begun. But here is what the $9 million settlement did not fix. Because Craig Tillman did not appear out of nowhere, he was hired, trained, evaluated, flagged, cleared, and deployed by a system that had every opportunity to intervene, and chose, at every single checkpoint, to do nothing. This wasn't just one bad rookie. The training academy passed him, despite ranking him 34th of 41. The supervisor who read the bias training recommendation and filed it without acting. The department that allowed 7 formal complaints to accumulate in 22 months without a single mandatory review. The administrative structure that responded to a handcuffed FBI director with paid leave instead of immediate suspension. Every one of those failures had a name attached to it, a signature, a date. The Senate Judiciary Committee's subsequent investigation, triggered directly by this incident, found that the D.C. Metro Police Department had no mandatory review protocol for officers accumulating more than 5 complaints within their first 2 years of service. None. It did not exist. Nationally, the investigation revealed that 23 major metropolitan police departments had similar gaps. No automatic escalation trigger for early career complaint accumulation. This case changed that. Within 14 months of the incident, federal legislative pressure had resulted in mandatory early career review protocols being adopted in 14 states. The bill that formalized those standards in D.C. was called, in its internal working draft, the Webb Protocol. They named a reform after the man they handcuffed on his own steps. If this could happen to a 31-year federal veteran, a man with credentials literally hanging around his neck, the only honest question is, what has been happening to people without those credentials? People without the cameras, the witnesses, and the platform. Most people don't have Marcus Webb's resources. Most people never will. Marcus Webb made one public statement about the settlement. 1. He did not hold a press conference. He did not grant television interviews. He did not post on social media. He released a single written statement through his attorney's office, and then he went back to work. The statement read, in part, that he had not pursued the civil complaint for personal gain, and that the outcome of the case was never the point. The point, he wrote, was that the systems designed to prevent moments like that, one had failed, and that failure required a documented institutional response. He was precise. He was measured. He was, in every word, exactly the man that 31 years of federal service had built. The $9 million settlement was not kept. Webb donated $3.1 million directly to the National Law Enforcement Accountability Fund, an organization that provides legal resources to civilians who cannot afford representation in civil rights cases against law enforcement. An additional $2.4 million was directed to a scholarship program at Howard University, his alma mater, specifically designated for first-generation students pursuing careers in federal public service. The remainder was placed into a legal defense trust for federal employees facing workplace civil rights violations. Every dollar accounted for, purposeful. He returned to his office the Monday after the settlement was announced, took the same route from the parking lot, used the same side entrance. His nameplate was still on the door. In an interview published 8 months later, the only interview he gave, a reporter asked Webb if he was angry. He paused for a long moment. Then he said, "I'm motivated. There's a difference." That difference is exactly why his name is now attached to a federal reform protocol. Marcus Webb walked back into that building on Monday morning. Same entrance, same steps, same man. That is what accountability looks like when it is pursued with dignity instead of anger. That is what 31 years of service looks like when it refuses to be reduced to a single moment on a sidewalk. And that is exactly why this story needed to be told. If you've made it this far, you are part of the reason stories like this don't disappear. Subscribe to this channel and share this video. The truth doesn't travel on its own. It travels because people like you decide it's worth sending. Before you go, I have one final question for you. What was the most shocking moment in this entire story for you? Was it the 7 complaints that went unaddressed, the falsified incident report, the fact that his credentials were visibly around his neck the entire time? Or was it something else entirely? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story moved you, if it made you think, made you angry, or made you want to do something, share it with one person today. One person. Thanks for watching until the end. Make sure you're subscribed for more stories that matter. See you in the next one.